Who was the ancient astronaut that the ancient Greek mathematician Pythagoras met? We know him from trigonometry. A squared plus b squared equals c squared, stuff like that. Now, who was the ancient astronaut that Pythagoras met? We often hear, read, or watch documentaries about ancient astronauts thousands of years ago, hypotheses on mysterious finds reminiscent of our ancient flying chariots, and we research them well. However, it seems that we have escaped the recorded testimony, but also the relationship encounters in the so-called quote-unquote historical years of Pythagoras with an astronaut, quote-unquote, who came on board with an arrow. The ancient astronaut met Pythagoras. The god Apollo is known for his incomparable accuracy in archery. His arrows never fail. He used this ability to avenge the Cyclops, whom he blamed for the death of Asclepius' son. With great skill, he aimed his bow, and with a single arrow killed the Cyclops. And after this, the arrow flew alone. Question mark. How did that happen? And hid in the temple of Apollo in the land of the far north, Hyperborea. This flying arrow was given by the god to the far north priest AVARIS, on whom he was transported for his journey from the far north to Delos, an island in the Aegean. AVARIS visited our planet in the time of Pythagoras, with whom he had contact, and in this event, the origin of Pythagoras, but also the Pheredikis' teacher, is located in the far north, again, Hyperborea. Besides, Pythagoras' relationship with the far north Apollo becomes apparent when AVARIS met Pythagoras and thought him of the god himself, or of the god of which he was a priest. This is what Iamblichus said, in whose text we can also read this. So they believe that this is the belief of their own perceptions, because the first to proclaim them was no accident but God, and one of the hearings is this: "Who are you, Pythagoras?" Because they claim that Apollo was from the far north. Proof of this is that in a fight, after he got up, he showed his thigh gold, and AVARIS hosted the far north Hyperborea and took from him a javelin, an arrow, with which he traveled through the ether. So this arrow, actually in Greek that would mean saita, which means something like the shape of a Concorde jet. Okay, now elsewhere he says, AVARIS gave Pythagoras an arrow, in other words, something like a Concorde jet, with which he was holding when he came out of the sanctuary. This would be useful to him for all of the difficulties that he would occur during such a great wandering. So riding on it, he could cross the impassable. Also, Etherivatis is the surname of AVARIS, because he was given a spear and arrow by Apollo, the far north, and carried on it. He crossed the impasses, walked in a way in the air, which some assumed he had done Pythagoras. Now, I'm translating this from Greek. It's not very smooth. AVARIS is rumored to have been one of Apollo's extreme northern priests who urged him to visit Greece. And according to the Neoplatonists, and especially in the work, quote, on the Pythagorean life, end quote, Iamblichus calls him Scythians, who came from the far north, being inexperienced in Greek education, ignorant and advanced in age. So he approached Pythagoras to learn Greek philosophy. Pythagoras then, to introduce him to the various Pythagorean theorems, did not apply the pedagogical method, but the 5-year silence and the other trials. But in a short time, he taught him the books on nature and on gods. AVARIS, he continues the text, emphasizes and repeating this, his from far northern origin, was old and very wise. He had come to Greece, ancient Greece, and at that time was returning to his homeland. But he wandered, and the road brought him to Italy, who saw Pythagoras and found that there is no other man like him. He gave Pythagoras a bone and arrow, which AVARIS had and kept from the time he left his country. Avarice had used this arrow because riding it, he could overcome all the difficulties he would encounter during his great wandering, and on it, therefore, he could cross the impassable, that is, rivers, lakes, swamps, mountains. Pythagoras, says Iamblichus, accepted the arrow as something natural, as if he were waiting for it without being surprised at all or asking him why he gave it to him. And he took Avarice aside and showed him his thigh, which was golden, giving him a sign that he was not wrong. When Pythagoras enumerated in Avarice one by one everything that is inside the sanctuary of Apollo of the underworld, and he assured him that everything was exactly like that, he also asked him to stay in Italy and teach those he met. So he stayed close to Pythagoras, who briefly taught him physiology, and instead of ionoscopy with sacrifices, gave him the prediction by numbers because he believed that this was the purest. He handed over other exercises of the spirit, the most proper ones, to Avarice. Apart from the Pythagorean philosophy, Avarice was also introduced to Orphic philosophy. Orpheus, son of Calliope, whom his mother had initiated on Mount Paganion, also taught Pythagoras and taught him that number is the definite substance of the gods, and that through numbers a miraculous prediction of the future is made. Pythagoras in turn taught all this to Avarice and taught him that instead of guessing with blood and slaughter, the safest knowledge is through numbers. He taught him a perfect knowledge of all truth, which can be deduced through arithmetic. Avarice, according to legend, was never seen either drinking or eating anything. Once upon a time, Phalaris, the toughest of the tyrants of the cities of Greater Greece, captured Avarice and Pythagoras as prisoners because he saw them talking, and because Avarice, instead of admiring the tyrant, admired Pythagoras and asked him many questions, above all of a sacred nature, such as what is the providence of the gods for humans, what is the relation of the statues and if they should be worshipped, what are the celestial bodies and those that revolve around the earth, and much more. Pythagoras continued to, you see here, revolving around the earth. They had a geocentric philosophy of things. Pythagoras continued to teach Avarice all these things depend on and are governed by the power of God, and that the power of the soul rules the freedom of the will. He went on to discuss in detail the perfect energy of reason in the mind, like a tyranny, luck, injustice, human greed, and concluded that all worldly things are of no value. He then gave him divine advice for the excellent life and compared it to a corrupt life, revealing to him that diseases and other calamities of the body are the fruits of impurity. He revealed to him the distinction between those that come from destiny and the addicted and those that come from mind. In this way, then, Avarice was introduced to Pythagorean philosophy and learned its main doctrines, and must have been one of the most important Pythagoreans. Legends and sources do not say whether he returned to the country from which he came down to relay the philosophy he was taught. Most likely, he would have returned and transmitted to them the Pythagorean philosophy, and especially the doctrine of the immortality of the soul, of which the Scythians, that is, the people also of Hyperborea, the north, were known in antiquity. This is Pythagorean B 173. This is by Vula Lamberpoulou, professor of University of Athens. And it's on, I've translated for you from a Greek article. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.